Hi everyone, Chris Petri. Welcome back. We're going to have a great time today. We're going to talk about how to get the most out of our palettes when we're painting with our paints and our getting a really nice looking painting. I know a lot of people, and tell me if this is not true, but sometimes we get to a point where we want to do a quick painting or a drawing and painting, and we just pick up our palette and we start going in and we do a quick drawing and we start painting, and we don't really pay attention to our palettes so much. And what happens is, if we're not really careful with our palettes and putting out new paint in our palettes and spraying them first and letting them the paints get a little bit soft and moist, we're not going to get a good result with our painting as much as if we just take a little extra time with our palette before we paint. We can definitely get way much more exciting paint onto our paintings and get a more a look of all the full range of tonal values. So here I just drew a couple quick. This is just for demonstration purposes, and this would just be, let's say, an idea of two paintings. So let's start off our first painting, and we'll sort of, kind of, we'll say this is our palette that we just pick up, and we really didn't prep it at all. We just kind of, it was sitting on the side of our room, by the desk or whatever, and we said, hey, we're going to do some painting, and we just pick it up, and we notice that the paints are kind of dry, and so let's start painting with this palette and see what happens. So we dip our brush into some water, of course. I just have a little water container next to me here, so it's just some water, typical water container here, and my brush, and we go in and let's say we're going to start painting. So we say, all right, usually blue is a very popular color, right? Sky, water. And we start going in, and we'll do some blue. Blue here. And then we'll move over to some maybe green. So we'll get some greens out here. So you see how I'm kind of scrubbing on the on my dry watercolor palette. And I'm getting some blue color here and some green, blue and green mixture, and then maybe some brown earth tones. So I'll kind of get some brown earth tones on here. Maybe some gold color, yellow ochre. So I'm kind of wetting the brush and coming over to the painting after I get some orange. And I clean my brush off and dip it in the water again and get a little more. And some red. We'll do some alizarin crimson. So we're just kind of scrubbing away, trying to get some color here. And maybe I'll try to get some darker color here. Okay, notice I'm working really hard to get all this color. It's taken me quite a bit of time to try to mix all this and get the colors on. So in essence, trying to scrub off colors off dry paints like this is costing me time. So you'll notice when you're painting, with watercolors, of course, we're sort of like always working with that time factor where we don't want things to dry too much because we want to blend sometimes our colors, what we're doing on our paintings. So we'll do some more here. Time is of the essence. Okay, so now we're kind of seeing. Okay, that's pretty much a dark French ultramarine blue, kind of um, using a dry paint, a palette that's got all dry paints on it, and I'm just kind of okay. That's a pretty good dark tonal value, but again, we're taking a lot of time here to try to get our darker tonal values. Okay, so you can kind of see how using a dry palette, it, it was it was kind of difficult to get dark tonal values like this. We had to keep on scrubbing away and dipping our brush and going back and forth, trying to get a darker tonal value. Now we're going to use a palette that's been prepped correctly. We have fresh tube paint that's been squeezed into the palette, so it's soft and moist, all the paint. And now we'll try this over here, and we'll notice that you'll see the value of having this freshly squeezed tube paint when we go into do our next painting here. So pretending that this is a painting. So right away you can see I didn't have to do, all I did was just get my brush into the fresh paint and look at the cobalt blue. This was the cobalt blue on the dry palette, and now we have cobalt blue here. And that's quick too. Let's see how quick we move through this. Okay, now we have some green. Okay, right away we can notice we're working a lot quicker. It's going a lot faster. We're not working too hard. We have all the paint we need, and we can get all the different tonal values of the colors. So dark green to very, very light green. If I wanted to go a little bit darker with that blue, I just dip right into that fresh squeeze blue. Okay, let's go in with some golds, and so I'll go in some burnt umber, some raw umber, and some yellow ochre. Then I'll just clean my brush off and then just leave a little bit of water in the brush, and then I can just fade out the colors into a more lighter tonal value. Rinse off my brush again. Maybe lift up a little paint. Okay, I'm having a lot more fun here and a lot quick. I'm going a lot faster and enjoying my painting process here with these thick, nice, juicy paints here. Okay, let's go with orange. So orange, I got plenty of orange there. And do some cadmium red. So we'll just put some of the cadmium red on the palette. And okay, and then we're going to go for some more blue. We'll do some French ultramarine and some mineral violet. and then I'll rinse my brush off and just shake the water out of it a little bit. And fade this to a lighter tonal value. All right, so now we can see clearly that we have a really nice effect of a lot more tonal value variations with this nice palette with fresh squeezed paint. And on this side, when we were trying to use our dry palette that we left laying around for about a week, and then we said, oh, we'll paint on the weekend, we got too busy at work. This is my case, and a lot of people's situations where we're working hard during the week at our normal job, and then we want to paint on the weekend. And then we say, oh, well, I'll just pick up my palette, and while all the paints are dried, well, I'll just work with it. And then this, use it. So that's what happens when we're not really activating this paint before we paint. So the simple way to kind of help us along here as we paint is maybe a half an hour before we paint, we take a spritzer bottle. So a half an hour to an hour before you're going to paint, even a couple hours before, you just spritz all the paint with plenty of water. You just keep going. Then you would take a paper towel, and we would wet that paper towel the same way. Spritz some water onto that paper towel. Get plenty of water on that paper towel, or could use a sponge too. Works. I've used sponges before, and we'll just wet the paper towel just a little more. Get it nice and damp and wet, and then we just leave that in the palette. And then we close it up and we just let that sit for a couple hours. And I even use a plastic bag. So a lot of times I'll take my palette and I'll put it in a plastic bag, and that keeps the air out of it. I use a larger plastic bag actually. But this is usually used, the same. You just find a larger bag that the palette fits in, and you can ziplock it closed and leave it sit on a table or whatever. And then when you're ready to paint, you just take it out of the bag, and after a couple hours, the paint will be soft and moist, and you can paint, and you can have the same, practically the same exact result as using fresh squeezed paint. If you have the time and patience, definitely try to squeeze fresh paint in your palette when you paint. But if you find that you're too rushed for time when you're practicing and painting, then the spritzing your palette a couple hours before and then putting it in a plastic bag with a damp paper towel will work. It'll activate the paint and get it pretty moist, where you'll be able to get nice darks or darker tonal values like this, versus trying just to scrub the dry paints with a damp brush or a wet brush. This is about all we can really do with that. So your paintings will have a lot more exciting colors with the moist paint. Okay, hope this helps, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye bye for now.